The marketplace was alive with noise. Alien voices rising and falling like waves. Merchants shouted about their goods, and people bargained in sharp tones. But in the middle of the crowd stood one girl, and all the noise was different around. She was young, her skin pale silver with strange markings that glowed faintly. Her clothes had been torn away, leaving her almost unclothed. Her body shivered not from the cold, but from the shame pressed upon her. The crowd did not see her. As one of them, they saw her as a curse. Children pointed at her with cruel laughter. Women whispered and spat. Men threw scraps of garbage. Pieces of rotten fruit splashed against her shoulders. The smell of decay clung to her. She kept her head low, her eyes on the dirt, every breath. Heavy with fear, she wished she could disappear. She wished the earth would open and swallow her, but there was no escape. This was her punishment. And she had lived with it all her life. The people shouted words like outcast and shame. The words pierced her heart like blades. Each laugh from the crowd felt heavier than stone. Each thrown object felt sharper than any weapon. She had been stripped not only of clothes, but of dignity. Her kind believed that anyone born with different skin, different marks, was cursed. They were not to be touched, not to be clothed. They were not even worthy of pity. She had carried this label since birth, and today the cruelty was worse than ever. Among the crowd, hidden near the shadows of a stone wall, stood a human, his face half hidden beneath the hood of his coat. He watched quietly, his jaw tightening with every cruel act. His hands clenched into fists inside his gloves. He had seen war, he had seen death. But this was something that burned differently. This was not battle. This was not survival. This was hatred for the sake of hatred, and it sickened him. The alien girl stumbled when a heavy piece of garbage struck her chest. She almost fell. Her knees buckled. The crowd cheered at her weakness. Tears stung her eyes, but she forced them down. She would not give them the joy of seeing her break, but inside, she was breaking. She whispered to herself, "Why was I born like this? Why must I suffer like this?" Her voice too quiet for the crowd, yet loud enough for the human to hear. Something stirred in him, something old, something human. The voice of his own past, of every moment when he had seen innocence crushed under cruelty. He could not walk away. He could not stay silent. He stepped forward, slowly at first, his boots heavy against the stone ground. The sound of each step lost in the noise of the market. But to him, it felt like thunder. The girl did not notice him yet, her mind too full of fear. The crowd too loud, but a few near the edges turned their heads when they saw the tall human soldier push past. His shoulders broad, his eyes sharp. He pushed through the press of bodies, ignoring the angry mutters. Ignoring the alien hands that tried to block him, he moved like a storm, steady and unstoppable. At last, he stood before her, the outcast girl, his shadow falling over her trembling form. The crowd fell into sudden silence. No one expected this. A human standing in the middle of their cruelty. The girl dared to raise her eyes. And for the first time in her life, she did not see hatred in someone's gaze. She saw something different. A quiet fire, a strength she did not understand. The human's hand moved to his shoulder, where his heavy military coat hung. Worn from battles and storms, he pulled it free with one smooth motion. And the crowd gasped as he wrapped it around the alien girl's bare shoulders. The coat was too big for her, but it covered her, shielding her body from the stairs, shielding her from the cold. For the first time in her life, she felt warmth. Not just of cloth, but of dignity. The crowd erupted, voices shouting, "What are you doing? Human, she is cursed, she is filth." But the soldier's voice cut through them like steel, calm but unshaken. "No one deserves this." The girl's eyes widened, her lips trembled. No words came, because no one had ever spoken for her before. No one had ever touched her without hate, The crowd pressed closer, some in anger, some in shock. Whispers filled the air, tension growing like a storm about to break. The human stood tall, his body between the girl and the mob. His coat still around her, his fists ready if needed, his heart steady with one thought: I will not let them take her dignity again. The girl clutched the coat tighter around her, her tears finally falling, but these were not tears of shame. These were tears of something new, something she had thought she would never feel. Hope. And as the crowd roared with fury, the human soldier knew one thing: this was only the beginning. The market grew louder. Voices echoing through the stone streets, the people could not believe what they saw. A human soldier had dared to cover the cursed alien girl. The silence lasted only a moment before anger exploded from the crowd. Remove your coat, human. Do not touch her, she is unclean, one man shouted, his voice sharp with hate. Step away, or you will regret this. Another cried, his hands shaking with fury, but the human did not move. He stood tall, his figure like a wall, his coat still wrapped around the trembling girl, his eyes cold and unyielding. The alien girl pressed the cloth close to her skin. Her heart beating fast, she wanted to speak, to tell him to leave before the mob tore him apart, but her lips would not form words. She was too shocked, too afraid, and too overwhelmed. The crowd pushed closer, rotten fruit and stones in there, hands ready to throw again. But now they aimed not only at the girl, but at the human as well. The soldier raised his hand slowly, not to strike, but to silence. His voice carried like steel through the air. Enough, he said, firm and steady. No one will harm her. Again, not while I stand here. The mob hesitated. The words like a sudden weight pressing down on them, their anger clashing with fear. Fear not of his weapon, but of his will. Some spat on the ground, muttering about the foolishness of humans. Others jeered louder, calling him weak, calling him blind, but none dared to step forward. The alien guards arrived, armored figures with long spears glowing faintly with energy, their faces hidden behind masks of steel. They cut through the crowd and stopped before the human, their leader's voice deep and harsh. Human, step aside. This girl is marked by our law. She is cursed. Her shame belongs to our people, not to you. The human's eyes did not blink, his voice steady. Your law is cruelty, and cruelty is no law worth following. The guards stiffened, their weapons lowering slightly in warning. The crowd cheered for them, chanting for the human's removal, chanting for punishment. The girl's hands shook as she pulled at his sleeve, whispering, Please, leave me. They will kill you. I am not worth this. Her voice cracked, broken from years of silence. But he looked at her with calm eyes and spoke softly, words only she could hear. You are worth more than they will ever see. Her breath caught, her heart pounding harder. She had never heard such words, never dreamed anyone would speak them. The guard leader stepped closer, his spear aimed at the soldier's chest, the energy crackling at its tip. Do not defy us, human. This is your last warning. The human did not move back. Instead, he stepped forward. The crowd gasped at his boldness, his hand brushing against the shaft of the weapon, pushing it gently away. If you wish to strike, someone, strike me, but you will not touch her again. The silence that followed was heavy, like the weight of the entire sky pressing down. The alien girl could not believe it. She had seen humans before, soldiers and merchants, but never one like this, never one who risked his life for her. The guard leader's hand trembled with rage, but something in the human stare froze him. The crowd's chants faltered, confusion spreading, fear mixing with anger. One old woman shouted, He is bewitched. The cursed one has poisoned his mind, and the crowd roared again, throwing. Words like fire. The guards circled, their weapons raised, ready to attack. The human's hand reached to his belt, where a sidearm rested, but he did not draw it. He let it stay, his choice clear. He would not start the fight, but he would end it, if forced. The alien girl gripped his coat tighter, her tears falling again, this time from a storm of emotions. She could not control shame, fear, but also something new: faith. The guards raised their spears in unison. The crowd shouted for blood. The air thick with hate and tension, but before the strike could fall, the human spoke once more. His voice, calm but unshakable. If this is the strength of your people, to beat the weak and shame the innocent, then you are already defeated. The words cut deep. The crowd hissed. The guards growled, but deep in the hearts of a few, a seed of doubt was planted. The guard leader hesitated, his arm heavy with uncertainty. The human's eyes locked onto his, steady as stone, daring him to strike. The girl held her breath, her body shaking, waiting for the moment of violence, waiting for the pain she had known her whole life. But it did not come. The guards lowered their weapons. Slowly, reluctantly, not in surrender, but in hesitation. The leader growled, "Take them away." Before his words spread like poison, the crowd roared again. Furious and restless, the human bent down, whispering to the girl, "Stay close." And then he took her hand firmly, pulling her through the narrow space between the guards. The crowd screamed, reaching out, but none dared touch him. The fire in his eyes kept them at bay. Step by step, he led her away, out of the market, out of the cruel circle of shame, into the twisting alleys beyond. The girl's heart raced, her legs weak, but she followed, the coat heavy on her shoulders. His hand strong in hers. For the first time in her life, she was not alone. And as they disappeared into the shadows, the human knew one truth: the fight had only just begun. The narrow alleys twisted like a maze, shadows stretching long as the sun began to sink. The human pulled the alien girl along, his hand firm but steady. Behind them, the noise of the market still echoed, angry voices shouting, guards clashing with the restless crowd. But every step carried them farther away. The girl stumbled, her legs weak from fear and exhaustion. Yet she forced herself forward, clutching his coat around her body, each breath sharp and trembling. She could not understand why he stayed with her, why he risked everything for someone like her. The human glanced back, his sharp eyes scanning for pursuit. He knew the guards would not give up easily. His training told him they would track them. But he also knew the ruins outside the city offered cover, danger, but also safety if they used it well. They reached the edge of the city, where the stone walls crumbled into broken ground. The air grew colder, the streets emptier, and soon they stood before the ruins, old towers cracked and leaning, broken statues half buried in dust. The remains of a forgotten age. The girl froze, fear flashing in her eyes. "We cannot go in there," she whispered, her voice almost too weak to hear. "It is forbidden. They say spirits live in those walls. Anyone who enters never returns." The human looked at her, his voice calm. "Do you believe that?" Her lips trembled. Her heart caught between the fear of her people's tales and the greater fear of the guards behind them. At last, she shook her head slowly. "I do not know." He nodded once. "Then we will make our own path." And with that, he stepped forward into the ruins, and after a moment's hesitation, she followed. The silence inside was heavy, broken only by the crunch of their steps on stone and rubble. Broken pillars loomed like giants. Shattered arches framed the sky, vines twisted around the ruins as if the earth itself tried to hide them. The girl wrapped the coat tighter around herself, her silver skin glowing faintly in the dim light. She kept close to him, her eyes darting at every sound, her heart still pounding with the memory of the crowd. At last, when they reached the shelter. Of a collapsed wall, the human stopped, his sharp gaze sweeping the shadows. Satisfied for now, he let her sit on a piece of broken stone. She lowered herself slowly, her body still trembling, her mind filled with questions she dared not ask. But silence became too heavy. So finally she whispered, "Why?" Her voice cracked. "Why did you do that? Why did you stand for me?" The human crouched before her, his eyes steady, his voice low but strong. "Because it was wrong." "What?" "They did. No one deserves such cruelty." Her chest tightened, confusion mixing with something strange and warm. "But I am cursed. They have always said it, since the day I was born. I bring shame, I bring misfortune. Even my own family turned away." His hand rested on his knee, his expression calm but burning with fire. "I do not believe in curses. I believe in choices. And they chose hate, but I choose not to." Her breath caught. No one had ever spoken to her like this. Her people had given her only hate and silence. Yet here stood a stranger, a human, giving her words she never dreamed to hear. She lowered her gaze, whispering, "You do not understand. I was left unclothed so the world could see my shame. I was told I should never cover myself, never hide my disgrace." Her fingers clutched the coat, tears forming in her eyes. "And yet you gave me this." The human's voice softened, "Not to hide disgrace, but to return what was stolen from your dignity." The words struck her heart like lightning. She lifted her eyes, and for the first time in years, she felt tears, not from pain alone, but from something fragile. Something like hope. The silence stretched, broken only by the wind whispering through the ruins. Then, footsteps echoed faintly in the distance. Sharp and heavy, the girl froze, her breath catching. The human's eyes narrowed, his instincts confirmed. The guards had already begun their search. He motioned for her to stay quiet, his body tense, his hand brushing against his sidearm. Though he kept it holstered, noise would only bring more trouble. They waited as the sound passed, fading for now, but he knew it would not last. The guards would search every corner, every shadow, until they found them. The girl leaned closer, whispering with fear, "They will not stop. They will hunt me until I am gone. And now, they will hunt you too." He looked at her, his jaw set. "Then let them come. I have faced worse, and I will face them again. But you will not be alone in this." Her breath shook, her mind overwhelmed. She wanted to argue, to tell him to leave her behind. But her voice failed, her heart refused. Deep inside, she did not want him to leave. The firelight of his words burned brighter than the shadows of her fear. She looked at him for a long moment, and finally whispered, "Thank you." Her voice fragile, but sincere. 2 words she had never spoken before, because no one had ever given her reason to. The human gave a small nod, his expression calm but strong, and in that silent ruin, a bond began to form. Fragile yet powerful outside, the echoes of the city still stirred, and in the distance, the guards' hunt grew closer. But for this moment, inside the ruins, she was no longer just the cursed girl. She was someone seen, someone defended, and for the first time, someone believed she was worth saving. The ruins grew darker as the sun slipped lower. The cold wind curled through broken arches. The human built a small fire from scraps of wood and stone, its faint glow pushing back the shadows. The alien girl sat close to the flames, her knees drawn to her chest. His coat still wrapped tightly around her. Though the fire gave warmth, she held onto the coat as if it were the only shield she had. For a long while, they said nothing, the silence heavy but not hostile. The human's sharp eyes scanned the ruins again and again, listening for footsteps of the guards. Yet his attention often drifted back to her. Watching the way she clutched the cloth, watching the way her eyes flickered between fear and thought. At last, she broke the silence, her voice quiet and hesitant. You do not understand, human. There is a reason they hate me. A reason they strip me and shame me. His gaze steadied on her, his tone calm. Then tell me. Her lips trembled. Her eyes lowered, the firelight reflecting in her silver skin. In my people, every child is born with markings, patterns that show their place, their worth. Their role in our society. The priests read them at birth, and the future is decided. But mine? Mine were different. She touched the glowing lines on her arms. Faint symbols that pulsed like fading stars. The priests called them broken. Cursed, unnatural. They declared I carried the shadow of ruin. They told my parents to abandon me, to leave me without clothes so my shame would always be seen. They said if anyone gave me dignity, the curse would spread to them too. Her voice cracked, tears sliding down her face. Even my mother turned her eyes away. My father walked past me as if I was nothing. And since then, I have lived with their disgust every day, every year. The human's jaw tightened. His fists clenched at his side. He felt anger rise like fire in his chest. But he kept his voice steady. They were wrong. Her head snapped. Up, eyes wide, as if she had never even imagined hearing those words. They are afraid of what they do not understand, he said, his voice carrying steady strength. They call you cursed because they cannot explain you, but difference is not weakness. 'Tis not shame. Her tears fell harder, her breath unsteady. But all my life I have heard the same words: curse, disgrace, filth. How can I believe anything else? He leaned closer, his voice lowering but sharper, because for the first time, someone tells you the truth. You are not what they say. You are more. I have seen strength in you to stand against hate all these years. Even when alone, that is not weakness. That is survival. Her chest shook, her hand pressed to her heart, his words piercing through layers of pain she had carried since birth. It felt unreal, like a dream she feared to wake from. For a long moment she stared at him, her lips parted as if to speak, but no sound came. Then at last she whispered, "You do not even know my name, yet you speak as if you know my soul." The human's eyes softened. "Then tell me your name." She hesitated, her voice trembling. "They rarely call me by it, but—" "My name is Liara." He repeated it once, slowly, carefully, as if carving it into memory. Liara. Her eyes shone in the firelight, something inside her shifting. Fragile but powerful, the night deepened. The fire crackled, but outside, danger. Pressed closer, faint echoes of armored footsteps drifted on the wind. The guards were searching the ruins, their voices distant, but drawing nearer. Liara stiffened, her eyes wide with fear, but the human raised his hand gently, steadying her. "Stay calm. The ruins are vast. We will move when the time is right." She nodded, though her body still trembled. Silence fell again, but this time it was different. No longer empty, but filled with the weight of truth shared, of secrets finally spoken. After a while, Liara whispered again, her voice low. "Do humans have curses? Do your people shame those born different?" The human's gaze turned to the fire. Memories? Flickering in his mind, humans have many flaws. We judge, we fear, we hate what we do not understand, but we also fight those flaws. Some of us choose better. Some of us choose kindness instead of cruelty. I chose to see you, not their lies. Her throat tightened, her tears burned. She looked down at the coat on her shoulders, her fingers tightening around it, and for the first time in her life, she wondered if perhaps she was not a curse. Perhaps she was simply Liara. The sound of footsteps grew louder, voices echoing closer through the ruins. The human rose quietly, his hand resting on his weapon now, his eyes sharp as stone. Liara's breath quickened, fear rising again. But this time she did not feel alone. She looked at him and whispered, "They will find us." He gave a small nod. His voice calm but fierce. Then let them try. The firelight flickered across the ruins, shadows stretching long, and in the darkness, two figures sat side by side, one broken by shame, one carrying defiance. Yet together they carried something new, and as the guards closed in, Liara realized a secret her people never taught her, a truth she had never known. The curse was never hers, was theirs. The ruins trembled with echoes, armored footsteps striking stone. The sound of the guards drew closer, their voices sharp. Carrying through broken arches, torches flared in, the night beams of light cutting across shattered walls. The human motioned to Liara, his voice low but firm. "Stay close to me." His eyes scanned every shadow, every opening, his body tense like a blade ready to strike. Liara's breath came quick, fear rushing through her veins. She clutched his coat tighter, her glowing markings pulsing faintly beneath the cloth. She whispered, "They will not stop. They will tear apart every stone until they find us." The human gave her a quick glance, his tone steady. "Then we make sure they find nothing." He took her hand again, leading her deeper into the ruins. Their steps quick but careful. The night was alive with danger. Torches flickered on walls, shadows moved, guards shouted orders, their search growing closer. Suddenly, a stone shifted under the human's boot, the sound sharp in the silence. Voices turned toward them, the air filled with alarm. "There, in the east wing, find them." The human cursed under his breath, his grip tightening on Liara's hand. "Run," he commanded, and they sprinted, weaving through narrow passages. Broken towers looming above them like silent giants. Lyra's heart pounded, her bare feet cut by sharp stones. Yet she did not let go. She followed his lead, her fear heavy, but her trust stronger. Behind them, the guards gave chase, their spears clanging against stone, their boots striking in rhythm. The hunt had begun. The human pulled his sidearm, firing once, the sharp sound echoing. A flash of energy striking the wall near the guards. Stone exploded, forcing them to scatter. "Buying a moment's time, keep moving," he shouted, his voice steady even as danger pressed closer. They reached a collapsed stairway, rubble piled high. He pushed her forward. "Climb," he ordered. Lifting her up, she scrambled with trembling hands and cut knees. Pulling herself to the top, he followed quickly after. At the top, they paused for breath, the fire of torches glowing below, its voices raging. "Do not let them escape. The human will pay for this." Liara looked at him, panic in her eyes. "Why do they hate you now? You are not one of us. You are not cursed." His jaw tightened because I stood against them. And tyrants always hate those who stand. Her chest tightened, her fear mixing with awe. She had lived her life hiding, broken by shame. But this? Man fought even when outnumbered. They pressed deeper into the ruins, where shadows grew heavier, the air colder, until they reached an open courtyard half buried under sand. There, waiting at the far end, stood a small figure with a torch, an alien villager. His face familiar to Liara, her eyes widened, her breath catching. "Terran," she whispered, memories flooding back. This man had once shared food with her. When no one else dared, he had spoken to her once when she was a child, a rare kindness in her darkness. The villager raised his hand, his eyes full of fear. "Liara, you must stop. You cannot run. They will not forgive you, and the human will die because of you." The human stepped forward, his body tense, his voice sharp. "We do not have time for this." But Lyra's heart wavered. She took a small step toward Terran, her voice trembling. "You helped me once. When I was starving, I trusted you." Terran's face twisted with sorrow, but his voice grew hard. "I only did what pity demanded. But this is madness. You are cursed, Liara." and now he has taken your shame upon himself, if you care. For him, surrender before they destroy you both. Her chest tightened, pain cutting deep. Betrayal sharper than any stone. Terran. You called me friend? Her voice broke. The torches behind them flared brighter. Guards entered the courtyard, their spears glowing, their voices triumphant. Terran lowered his head, his whisper barely reaching her. I am sorry, the human cursed under his breath, pulling Liara back as the guards closed in. It was a trap, he growled, his voice bitter but steady. The guards charged, spears raised, the human fired again. Energy blasts sparking against armor. The ruins roared with sound. Liara cried out as a spear grazed the ground near her. Sparks. Flying, the human fought with brutal efficiency, striking one guard with his elbow, spinning and firing at another. Yet there were too many. The air filled with shouts, steel and fire. Go. He shouted at her. Run, I will hold them, but... Liara's eyes widened, her voice trembling. No, I will not leave you. The guards pressed harder, and in the chaos, one spear slashed across the human's arm, blood splattering, staining the stone and dripping onto the coat she wore. Liara screamed, rushing to his side, her hands trembling as she pressed against his wound. Her heart breaking. No, please, not because of me. The human gritted his teeth, forcing himself to stand, his voice fierce, even through the pain. This is not because of you. This is because of them. With a final surge of strength, he forced the guards back long enough to pull her through a broken arch. Dragging her into the dark tunnels beneath the ruins, they stumbled through the shadows, his blood leaving a trail, her tears falling freely. And as the night deepened, Liara knew a truth sharper than betrayal. The world had turned against them both, and yet he still stood for her. Still fought for her, still bled for her, and, deep inside, for the first time, she realized something terrifying and beautiful. She could not bear the thought of losing him. The tunnels beneath the ruins stretched long and narrow, the air thick with dust. Every step echoed softly. The human's breath was heavy, his arm pressed against his wound, blood dripping slowly onto the stone floor. Liara walked close beside him, her hands trembling. Every drop of red on the ground felt like a blade in her chest. She whispered again and again, I am sorry. This is my fault. But the human shook his head, his voice steady, though faint. Do not say that. This is not your fault. I chose this. She bit her lip, her tears burning. She wanted to argue, but his eyes silenced her, eyes full of fire, even through the pain. They reached a small chamber, broken pillars surrounding them. Moonlight filtered through cracks above, soft and pale. The human finally stopped, leaning against the wall, his strength wavering. Liara hurried to him, pulling him gently down to sit. Her hands frantic as she tried to stop the bleeding. She tore a piece of cloth from the inside of the coat, pressing it against his wound, her voice shaking. You will not die, not because of me, he hissed with pain, but gave a faint smile. I have survived worse, trust me. She shook her head, pressing harder, her tears falling freely onto his arm. No, this is different. I have never had anyone stand for me, never had anyone see me as more than shame, and now you bleed because of it. He reached with his uninjured hand, placing it gently over hers, his touch firm, yet soft. I do not regret it. Not a single moment. Her heart raced, her chest tightening with emotions she could not name. She looked at him, truly looked, and for the first time, she did not see a stranger. She saw someone who carried her pain as if it was his own. The silence between them grew heavy, but not empty, the fire of his words still burning in her mind. Slowly, she whispered, when I was a child, I dreamed someone would come, Someone who would stop the laughter, stop the shame. But dreams always faded, until today. When you stood in front of me, I thought it was impossible. The human's eyes softened, his voice low. Sometimes dreams just need someone stubborn enough to make them real. She let out a broken laugh, her tears still falling, but now, mixed with something lighter, something fragile. She pressed her forehead against his shoulder, whispering, "You are stubborn indeed." For a long while, they stayed like that. The sound of their breathing filling the ruined chamber above them. The moonlight shone through cracks like silver threads. The human finally leaned back, exhaustion weighing on him. His wound bound tight by her hands, though weak, his voice was calm. "We cannot stay here. The guards will search even these tunnels." Liara nodded, but her heart still trembled. Fear heavy? "Then where can we go? There is no place for me, no place for us." His gaze lifted to her, steady even in pain. "Then we will make a place, together." Her breath caught, the words striking deep. She had never belonged anywhere but in his presence for the first time. She felt the possibility of belonging. She touched the coat again, its weight warm against her. Its fabric stained now with his blood, yet still a shield, still a gift. In her people's belief, anyone who covered a cursed one would share the curse. But as she looked at him, she wondered if instead he had shared his strength with her. A faint noise stirred in the distance, echoes of voices, the guards still hunting. Their torches casting flickers of light through cracks in the walls. The human pushed himself up slowly, groaning with pain. Liara tried to stop him, but he shook his head. "We cannot stay still." "Come," she stood with him, supporting his arm across her shoulders, her small frame carrying his weight. Though her legs trembled, she held firm. They moved through the tunnels together, step by step, shadows swallowing them. The ruins groaning as if alive. At last, they found a hidden chamber, half collapsed. But sheltered from the outside, there the human sank to the ground again, his strength nearly gone. Liara knelt beside him, her hand on his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart. She whispered softly, "You risked everything for me. Yet I have given you nothing." He looked at her, his voice low but unwavering. "You have given me something no battle ever gave me: purpose." Her eyes widened, her breath shaking. "Purpose," she repeated, as if testing the word. "Yes," he said, closing his eyes briefly before opening them again. "To stand for what is right, to fight for someone who has been denied everything. That is worth more than any victory in war." Lyra's tears fell once more, but they were no longer only tears of sorrow. They carried something new, something bright. She leaned closer, her forehead against his, her whisper soft. "Then I will not let you fall, not while I breathe, in that broken chamber." Under moonlight and shadow, a bond formed, stronger than fear, stronger than shame. No longer the cursed girl, no longer the outcast. Liara felt something she had never known, the warmth of belonging, the strength of being seen. And as the night grew deeper and the hunt of the guards pressed closer, she vowed silently she would not let him carry this fight alone. She would stand with him. Together, they were no longer prey. They were something greater. The night stretched long, the ruins whispering with echoes of pursuit. Liara stayed close beside the human, her hand steady on his arm as he leaned against her for support. The wound slowed him, but his eyes still burned with the same fire. They had found shelter in a forgotten chamber, but dawn was breaking. The pale light of morning slipped through cracks in the stone, and with it came the sound of armored boots. The guards had found them. Lyra's heart pounded, her breath trembling. She knew this moment would come, the moment when hiding would no longer be enough. The moment when her people would drag her back to the life of shame. But this time, she was not the same girl. This time, she was not alone. The human stood, his body. Weak yet unbending, he placed a steady hand on her shoulder, his voice low but fierce, no matter what happens. Remember this, you are not cursed, you are not broken, you are Liara. Her chest tightened, tears filling her eyes. But they were not tears of fear, they were tears of strength. She nodded, whispering, "And you gave me that truth." The chamber. Doors burst open, light spilling in as guards filled the entrance, their spears glowing, their voices harsh. "Surrender the girl, human. She belongs to us. Her shame cannot be hidden." The human stepped in front of her, his tall frame blocking their path, his coat still wrapped around her shoulders. His voice steady as stone, "She belongs to no one. Not to your laws, not to your cruelty. She is her own." The guards growled. The leader stepped forward, his eyes burning with rage. "You defy us again, human. You dare challenge the will of our people." The human did not flinch. "I challenge the cruelty that destroys your people from within." His words cut like blades, sharp and unyielding. The crowd gathered behind the guards. Villagers who had followed, their voices rose in angry chants. "Cursed, cursed, cursed." The sound echoing like thunder. Liara's knees shook, the memories of shame pressing on her. But then she looked at the human. His strength steady even in pain, his defiance standing taller than the spears, and something inside her broke free. She stepped forward, past him, past his protection. Her hands trembling, but her eyes fierce. Her voice cracked at first, but grew stronger. "Enough." The crowd froze. The guards hesitated. Never had she raised her voice before. Never had she stood against them. "I am Liara," she said, her voice ringing through the ruins. "You call me cursed. But I have carried your hate, and still I stand. You stripped me of clothes, but still I live. You threw stones and garbage, but still I breathe. If that is a curse, then your cruelty has no power." The crowd murmured, some jeered, but others grew silent. Doubt flickering in their eyes, she pulled the coat tighter around her shoulders, her voice rising. "This human gave me dignity when you tried to take it. He covered me when you left me bare. He fought for me when you wished me broken. And now I see the truth. The curse is not on me. It is on you, on your hate, on your fear." The guard leader roared with anger, lifting his spear. But Liara did not step back. Her glowing markings flared brighter than ever. Shining against the dawn, she stood tall, her voice steady. "I will not hide anymore. I will not bow anymore. I am not cursed." The human stepped beside her, his arms still bleeding, but his stance unshaken. His voice deep and strong. "She is not alone. She never will be again." The villagers stared, some lowering their eyes in shame, others whispering to each other, cracks forming in the wall of their belief. The guard leader hesitated, his hand trembling on his weapon. The strength of the crowd faltered, the courage of their cruelty breaking under the sight of her defiance. One child in the crowd whispered softly, "She is not cursed." And the sound carried like a spark through dry grass. Voices shifted, whispers spread, doubt grew louder than hate. The guards stepped back, uncertain, their leader snarling but unable to strike. For to strike her now would be to confirm the weakness of their law. Liara lifted her head high, the coat heavy on her shoulders. But this time it was not a burden. It was a crown. She looked at them all and said with steady voice, "You cannot take my dignity, because it was never yours to take." The silence that followed was heavy, yet powerful. At last, the guards lowered their spears, their leader glaring but retreating. The crowd slowly broke apart, some in confusion, some in shame, some in quiet acceptance. The human placed his hand gently on Liara's shoulder, pride shining in his eyes. "You did not need me to speak for you this time," he said softly. Liara turned to him, her eyes bright with tears, but her smile fierce. I found my voice because you showed me it was worth hearing. Together they walked out of the ruins, side by side, no longer hiding. The morning sun rising to light their path, and for the first time in her life, Liara did not feel the weight of shame. She felt the strength of freedom, the dignity restored not by law, not by her people, but by her courage and by the human who stood beside her. The girl once called cursed had become something greater. And the human who gave her his coat had given her more than protection. He had given her a future.